Hi, my name is Evan. This is the first in a series of information videos on the subject of restraining orders and specifically on civil harassment restraining orders. This is being presented by the Kern County Law Library and it is for information purposes only. I always like to start by saying that though this is meant to be a good summary of the laws and the processes that you should expect in Kern County on the subject of civil harassment restraining orders, laws change. This should not be considered legal advice to any one viewer, and you should always treat this as just a supplement to the information you can get from other sources on the same subject, like, for instance, the California Courts website, which has a self-help page, which includes a full section devoted to abuse and harassment, where you can research on a variety of topics, including types of restraining orders, which type to request for you, and that includes a whole section specifically on civil harassment. All of that said, let's go ahead and begin our presentation on civil harassment restraining orders in Kern County. And this first question is going to answer a few questions. This first presentation is going to answer a few questions, and those are: when are civil harassment restraining orders appropriate? What can they do for me, and what can't they do for me? So often when people visit the law library, they will ask that, or they will instead announce that they need a restraining order and they don't know what kind to pursue. They've just been told that they need one and they want information about how to select the proper one for them. So we're going to talk about the appropriateness of a civil harassment restraining order, what they can actually accomplish for you, and what they cannot. So first, when should you request a civil harassment restraining order? They may be right for you if any of the following or all of them or any combination thereof are true. So if you are being stalked, if you are being harassed and or subjected to a pattern of seriously annoying behavior, if you are being sexually or physically assaulted or both, if you are being threatened, and if you are willing to file a case which will become part of the public record. So just for the sake of your information, before you bring your petition for a civil harassment restraining order, most of the information on the documents you file with the court will be reviewable by any member of the public who requests to review them. That is from the California Rules of Court. And the question arises, when should you request the civil harassment? There are certain purposes that they can be used for, and they include orders not to contact you or go near you, orders not to harass or threaten you, and then orders not to possess firearms, firearm parts, or ammunition. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are sort of the main highlights of a civil harassment restraining order and what they can do for you. You can bring requests for these orders solely on your own behalf, or you can name additional people you want to be protected by the order. So if you have, let's say, a housemate who's also receiving the same sort of threatening behavior, harassment, whatever it might be, you may name them as an additional protected person on your request. If you have a family member that you want to protect as well from the same individual that's bringing this pattern of harassment, you can include other people you want to be protected by the order in a single petition. So just for example, if a neighbor is harassing you and your spouse, you can request a single civil harassment restraining order naming you as the protected person and your spouse as an additional protected person. Your spouse would not have to request her own individual civil harassment restraining order from the court in order to be protected by the same order. And as to the main reason that we hear people asking this question, that why needed a restraining order, and here's why. If you've experienced a pattern of harassment, you've called to report it to the police already. You may have been told they cannot assist because either, quote, that is a civil matter, and or you need to get a court order. And this is correct. They need an order to enforce, generally speaking, for this type of thing. So if you are granted a civil harassment restraining order by the court, you will have an order you can ask police to enforce. So just for the sake of clarity, we also want to cover when is it incorrect to use a civil harassment restraining order. So if it's not clear by now, there are multiple kinds of restraining orders, and you should research using a domestic violence restraining order if you want to ask for an order restraining any of the following: your spouse, either current or former, someone you are currently or used to be romantically involved with, however briefly, your parent, your child, your sibling, your grandparent, your grandchild, or a brother or sister-in-law. So if you want to learn more about a domestic violence restraining order in Kern County, you should retrieve free resources on them from the Family Law Facilitator's Office. Family Law Facilitator prepares document packets you can get for free, and they'll review your paperwork for accuracy and completeness before you file it with the court. Just keep in mind, they also cannot offer legal advice about the content of your request. So for instance, they can point out if you have left key sections of the paperwork blank, if you have checked boxes but not provided responses or declarations in support of your request. They cannot tell you this is a legally ineffective argument or request that you are making. They cannot give you suggestions on how to spruce up the prose in your paperwork. They are there to confirm technical accuracy, not legal sufficiency. So it's always best to confirm current hours of operation with the department directly. Email them at wmfacil@kern.courts.ca.gov or call them at 661-610-6400 if you want to communicate directly and or request the domestic violence restraining order packet be emailed to you. Now, another note about when it is incorrect to use one of these. The civil harassment restraining order is not a substitute for an unlawful detainer action if you want to evict someone living in your home. So if you want to ask the civil court to order someone in your residence to vacate, the judicial branch of the state of California states explicitly on the information guide for civil harassment restraining orders, which is form CH-100-info, quote, in a civil harassment case, the court cannot order a person to move out of your residence. The civil harassment restraining order also cannot address landlord-tenant issues on your rental property. So not your personal property, but perhaps a property you own and use for rental purposes. So just like the civil harassment restraining order does not substitute for an unlawful detainer if you want an order for a tenant to move out of your personal residence, the civil harassment restraining order also does not substitute for an unlawful detainer if you have a problematic tenant in your rental property. So if you have a tenant in your personal residence or in a rental property you own, the civil harassment restraining order will not resolve issues with a tenant that you want the court to order to move permanently out of the rental space. Now, keep in mind, you can still, if you have a problematic tenant that's harassing, annoying, threatening, attacking, etc., you can still pursue a civil harassment restraining order against them. It's just that this process is not equivalent to an action to evict them. So again, the court may be able to issue other kinds of orders against problematic tenants, whether in your residence or your rental property. But bottom line, the civil harassment restraining order cannot resolve the issue of tenancy itself. If you want to learn more about evicting a problematic tenant in Kern County, call Landlord Tenant Assistance Center at 661-610-6299 or email them at ltac@kern.courts.ca.gov. Now, Landlord Tenant Assistance Center also has walk-in hours in the same space as the Law Library at 1415 Truxton Avenue, room 301, Bakersfield, California, 93301. You can call and email in advance if you want to confirm current walk-in hours, as they may be subject to change.